One of the areas for which Hungarian mathematics has been best known over the past half century has been combinatorics. How did the Hungarian combinatorics school come about?
There are two different periods, actually, when combinatorics became popular, or not popular, but at least known. The first one is when Erdős and Gallai were students at the Eötvös University, and at that time Dénes König gave lectures at the Technical University, and they both went to attend the lectures of König. Now, it is important to mention his name also because König's book was the very first, as far as I know, book on graph theory. But at that time, the graph theory, what was presented there was matching theory and that sort of things, electrical networks, and this was in the 30s, and I feel for more than 30 years there was nothing. And now, how in the program for mathematicians included as an obligatory lecture graph theory.
Now you are in the 60s. No?
Now I am in the 60s. That before 62, I think, there was no program just for mathematicians. It was always a program for mathematics and physics, which included mathematics and physics, and officially it was a program for teachers. At that time, graph theory was completely different. We had a lot of almost isolated theorems, and this is what I really did in the very first year. And I think you never had a graph theory in the first year, did you? No. And the reason was that graph theory was not accepted as a subject what one should learn, what is important enough, and so there was a permanent discussion at the university that graph theory and number theory should belong to the curriculum or not. And therefore, it was an in and out. In some years it belonged, in some years not. But even at that time, when it was not necessary to take that course, there was always some sort of special course. So this means that in Hungary, I feel that young people had very early, in the early 60s, the possibility, or even more, was forced to learn some graph theory. At that time, easier to find problems, questions, unsolved problems on which young people can work and can have their own results. And this is what happened.
Who were the major mathematicians who somehow brought this subject?
Erdős was, but he was most of the time abroad, so there was no possibility to ask him to give a lecture. And the second was Gallai, who was already working on graph theory, and his results were best known.
Did Rényi have some role in this developing love in Hungary for combinatorics?
Partly Rényi, but for Rényi, probability theory was his main subject, and he had a chair there, so the whole probability theory was his responsibility. Mm-hmm. But Hungary was, I think, the first one where combinatorics, graph theory, discrete mathematics became a required course.
Required course at Eötvös University
for undergraduates. University, mm-hmm. Yes, for undergraduates.